My guests today are director Jordan Murphy Doidge and actor Archie Yates and their short film CLOUT. Now, Jordan has a wealth of experience working with luxury brands, a natural storyteller, inspired and driven by opportunities to collaborate across multimedia strategies to enhance brand objectives. His previous clients include Land Rover, Breitling, and Rolls-Royce, as well as Paul Smith, even Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Heineken, just to name a few. And he has also worked with artists such as including ASAP Rocky, Lenny Kravitz, and Dominic Cooper. And actor Archie Yates is with us today as well, who received a Critics' Choice nomination for Best Young Actor for his role as Yorki in Jojo Rabbit. Stars alongside Anna Wilson-Jones, Nadine Marshall, and Samuel Leakey in their brand new short film, CLOUT. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Jordan Murphy Doidge and actor Archie Yates and their poignant short film, CLOUT, to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Well,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely. Well, Jordan, I'm going to kick it off with you. So, along with Tom Duthie and Tristan Thomas, how did the idea come about for this film?
Yeah, sure. The idea of the film, it started during lockdown, actually. As a lot of us were stuck at home, I'm the eldest of five siblings, and I started to really see the kind of dark hold that social media was having on my siblings. It's kind of scary, really. It kind of robs them of their, like, I don't know, their personality. Like it's kind of zaps all the energy from them. And so I started talking to the guys I wrote it with about ways in which we could try and tell a story around these, the damaging effects of social media, particularly on young people. And we like any story, if you can find a fable to kind of center it on, it's always a great thing because it's kind of universal and it usually resonates with wider audiences. And so we felt that The Boy Who Cried Wolf was like a perfect metaphor for like that dark hold that social media is having on us all. We're all living these highlight reels of our lives. So we felt like that was quite a compelling fable for telling a story. And I've always loved kind of the coming of age genre, films like Stand By Me or The Goonies. And so if you were to rewatch Stand By Me, you'd see that it's quite similar to our plot. It's the four boys, kind of outsiders at school. They go into the woods to find or discover a dead body to get their picture in the local paper. And so our story is very similar, although it's just like fast forward like 4 decades, and it's all about chasing clout. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's just a new form of media. And so we kind of like adapted that story or plot into a more Black Mirror realm. So it's a dark cautionary tale, but we tried to really capture that innocence of youth. And so finding Archie to join us on this project was almost like kismet, if I'm honest. When writing this script, we watched Jojo Rabbit, and for anyone that's seen Jojo Rabbit, you might agree that we felt that Archie kind of really, I felt like he kind of didn't steal the show, but like he was a real memorable character out of that film. Like all of the scenes that he did was so good, and so we were like, God, like to get him in our, very humble short film, we never would have thought we would get him. And so when approaching our casting director, she's called Georgia Topley, I sent her the casting breakdown for this, and she's like, oh yeah, Archie Yates, he'd be great for this. And I was like, oh, you know him? And she's like, yeah, I cast him in Jojo Rabbit. I was like, are you joking? And so she then was like, yeah, I can call his mum Julia, and I'll get it to him tomorrow. And then within 24 hours, Archie was attached. And like, that felt fated. Like from the conception of the story, we were like, if we could have any actor play this role, it was Archie. And lo and behold, he's attached 24 hours later, and about a year later, we're on set shooting CLOUT. So it was, there's been lots of that kind of serendipity and synchronicity around this short film. Like we had to start and stop about 3 times. It's just not hard. It's not easy trying to shoot a film like this with the backdrop that we had envisioned. It was very ambitious. We wanted to shoot this in like prestigious private schools. It's not very easy to persuade like headmasters that you're going to be drowning their students. But we ended up having to like find alumni that had actually studied at these schools to try and bring them on as pseudo producers to say, oh, we're shooting this film. But then as a result, they then became very much a part of the project. A guy called Henry Empson, who was became a production assistant on this film, but he managed to get us access to Harrow. And if you might not be familiar with Harrow, but if Harrow, like Winston Churchill studied at Harrow, Benedict Cumberbatch studied at Harrow, like some true greats have studied there. And so it was like the perfect setting for the story that we'd conceived. So yeah, I mean, maybe a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the origins of CLOUT. And I mean, I'm sure Archie's probably got something to say about how he joined the project and this kind of journey.
Well, when I look at the film, it is a very ambitious project based on the camera shots in multiple locations. Because a lot of the short films you see, you may get 2 locations within the film. It could be within a house and it's only 2 rooms, so but this one is, I can tell, is very ambitious. But you bring up 2 things that entered my mind when I watched this film, because I've watched this film 4 times. One, I got the Stand By Me situation.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you said The Boy That Cried Wolf, because that's exactly the story I was thinking of. And your film reminds me of the day when the smartphone wasn't invented yet. I mean, I grew up with no smartphone. There was no such thing as a personal computer. Television at the time was split between either black and white or color. And then most of us spent time outside, and the idea of a career meant going to college. Now, social media, and then we can instantly reach the world. But many people, they think they can be influencers and that fame is just one video away. And you just kind of explained as to why you wanted to bring that idea of online fame, but also you show how far, or I should say, online fame can go way too far. So, Archie, for you, you play the lead character, Oscar, a young teen whose home life isn't that good. He uses social media to make it appear grand, like, well, millions of other people do today. First, as Jordan just said, how did you get cast for the lead? And what did you think of the script?
Okay, so as Jordan said, I first heard about CLOUT when the casting director that cast me for Jojo Rabbit reached out to me, saying that the script for CLOUT had been written with me in mind, which was a lovely surprise. Really, really appreciated that. And then I read through the script for the first time and just immediately fell in love with the project. Oscar, the great character development, and like I was really, really excited to get the opportunity to play a character like that. Not only because it's definitely different to the other stuff that I've done throughout my career regarding like acting and the other shows that I've been in, but also just because like the beautiful message behind CLOUT, or not necessarily beautiful, but impactful and important. The tough discussions that we need to be having around social media and how it can be impacting people my age and their mental health. It's a really important conversation that I feel like we need to be having, and I was just really, really eager to get the opportunity to be part of that conversation. So as soon as I heard about the job, read through the script, I was like, yes, put me on it.
Let me ask you this, because the film starts out with old footage of you on social media. Were you trying to gain fame early on?
Not seriously. So when I was younger, I was quite a performative child. only for like friends and family. I used to want to be a magician since I was like 3, I think. So I used to be like quite an energetic, performative child. It's how I actually got into acting in the first place. Is I needed some kind of medium to exert that energy so that I wouldn't be so disruptive in school. But I forgot what I was going to say. Jesus.
Well, because the film starts out with very real early footage of
Yeah.
you on social media. I was just wondering if you were using it to almost like the character Oscar, trying to gain views, likes, and followers.
No, actually, I never. As far as I'm aware, none of the footage that is part of the short film was actually posted to social media accounts. It might have been to like my mum's Facebook or something, but it was a long time ago, and I wasn't like actively trying to become famous. Obviously, at such an early age, because I had like no no desire to become famous or be an influencer, be like a child star or something. Because I'd never really thought that far. Yeah, I was still just like enjoying the early days of primary school at that
Well,
point.
well, the thing I noticed on the early footage, and then I've noticed in the film, and Jordan, you couldn't cast a better actor and character to play than Archie Yates because he stands out just on the look alone, but his personality matches the look. And with social media today, and we've all seen the videos on Instagram where, people actually lost their life. And a lot of people go to extreme lengths to capture some type of video or some crazy stunt that they do, and then they die over it. Now, are we that insecure in our identity, or is society partly to blame for a moment of fame? And that's a question for both of you.
I mean, I'm happy to jump in there. I think there's a lot going on there and a lot to break down in that question. Because, so as part of this project, we've actually partnered with 4 leading charities. And in the lead up to it, we spoke with parents that sadly lost their children to um, kind of wrongful suicide or taking their own life. And it's harrowing. Like, it's a really scary thing. And there's many things at play here. Like, big tech is something you can't ignore because they're gamifying these platforms to like essentially monopolize our attention. But putting that in the hands of young people is a really dangerous thing because playground politics are shifting. Currency is shifting on the playground. It's not so much about, like, when I was growing up, it was probably more, there was probably more currency around if you were good at sport. Or if you were like strong, or trivial things like that. But now it's really about how many followers you've got, and so there's this real, like, it's not even a desire; it's a need for this kind of clout online. And so kids are chasing it without looking at any of the consequences of doing so, and are willing to put themselves in harm's way to do that. But then it goes even further than that. I think the psychological impact is extremely dangerous for young people because their minds are still developing, and the way in which they're, like, the dopamine that they're getting from these platforms is scary, because I think it's going to have ripple effects later in life. Like, it's not been around long enough for us to have like the data on this yet, but you can clearly see that it's a problem. Like, it's the elephant in the room with most families, if not all families, and it's on a global scale. Like, one of our actors, Ashwin, his family's originates from India, and his mum feels extremely passionate about this because she's then like, this issue is, it's not just centered in a vacuum in the Western societies or cultures. It's like, it's global. There's a film I watched recently called Can't Look Away. I strongly recommend watching it. It's a harrowing watch, but it's all about young people in America's negative kind of relationships with social media. And that documentary explores all the different platforms from Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and there's another one I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it kind of takes you on a journey with each of the family, and every single one of them has lost a child to these different platforms, and it's really harrowing. And when you watch a show like Netflix's Adolescence, that's now nominated for 13 Emmys, I feel like politicians have got a voice, and politics is important, but sometimes like media is actually more powerful, especially like media can weaponize politics, but content can carry. And so you can see with the impact that adolescence is having now, it's having a real positive impact on just getting sparking meaningful dialogue around this. And so this is why we've made this film, and why it's really important to us now, especially now we've got these charity partners involved. We've just partnered with the same charity that Adolescence is partnered with, called Into Film. It's focused in the UK, but they have a streaming platform that has access to all of the schools nationwide, and our film is going to be hosted on that screening platform. So it means that we're going to directly reach the very people that we wrote this film for, because the more I hear about these problems, the people that have the biggest voice are like parents, teachers, and professionals. Whereas I truly believe, when I've spent time with people like Archie and the other boys on set, what they have to say is I feel more powerful, because they're the ones experiencing it every day. And so I feel like with this film, what I would really love to happen is to start giving more of a platform, more of a voice to the young people, the very people that are going through it, because what they say is like, it's quite surprising. Rather than having to listen to someone tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing, if we just listen to them for a moment, the moment they get past like the fun and banter of it, the moment one of them's vulnerable and says something honest, it triggers it amongst the rest of them, and they all then start speaking about how much they hate it and how it negatively impacts their lives, but they have to use it because of the social currency that's attached to it. And if they don't, they're going to get bullied or left out, and then not feel like they're fitting in. So, for someone like Archie, who's actually living through this now.
Well, Archie, let me ask you, who controls your social media? Do you or do your parents?
Funny you mentioned that, actually. We've come to a bit of a shifting point. So I've taken a very, very long break from social media, like using it at all. I don't have any other social medias outside of my Instagram, and I don't have a private account because I don't really like to get myself involved in social media, especially not after working on CLOUT and understanding like the impact that it can have on your mental health. And I find that I've been a lot happier living that way. And it's not, weirdly enough, it's not isolating like at all, to not be using social media. It's really, really comfortable, and it's nice to live like that sort of peaceful life. Now that my GCSEs are over, though, and I have a lot more free time to focus on myself and my career, I am taking over the Instagram account from my mum, who has been heroically managing it for all this time since I started my acting career. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting new adventure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've had where parents had reached out to me because their child is an actor. And so and I love the fact that their parents are overseeing their career. Some of the ones that I've talked to are anywhere from, 15 to even 19 years old. Uh, but I also noticed too that within the film industry, and Jordan, I'm going to let you jump in on this one, but Archie, this is actually directed to you. Many producers today in the areas of film are using social media to choose the actors for certain parts. I believe talent trumps followers. Have you run into that problem?
Yeah, I think it's sadly it is a distribution channel for projects. And so additional distribution just means additional eyeballs, which means additional reach. And, as far as what a lot of these financiers are financing movies for is to get a return. And so it's why people with high follower counts are getting roles over someone that may have been a better fit for the role. It's a sad reality that we just have to just accept. I find, like, for this project, we certainly didn't do that. We were quite meticulous in our casting for. I mean, Archie, obviously, we wrote it for him, so he got the role straight away. But all the other roles that two of which had never acted before, so there was definitely no influence from their previous careers. I feel like there's such working with raw talent is really exciting, like, because I feel like making a film like this. I've worked with young people before, but in a commercial capacity, when with narrative and dialogue, you get the kind of like playful element through them, which I find even some of the best actors that we know, when you listen to them in interviews, the amount they use the word play is fascinating. And they say my job is to get to be a child for the day, like when they're on set, because they're playing, and by doing so you get the best stuff. Like, you allow it to be quite electric and spontaneous and improvised, and that's when the real magic comes through, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and that's what we're trying to capture, emotion. And so if you let human beings be human beings, and be playful, you get the best from them. And so working with younger people is great, but I feel like the moment you start trying to chase follower counts, you start getting people that aren't really actors, and they're showing up, and they're not committing to the project. They're committing to themselves, be themselves in the project, because it's further clout for them. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Our kind of attitude to this is like, talent always wins, and every single person on this project was incredible. I mean, there is a certain irony here, in the fact that the character Trey is actually a kind of globally famous influencer. The character's name is TikTok Trey, and in real life he's got like 1.5 million followers. So, we did cast him because we were looking for someone with loads of followers, but that's because we were casting the part. We casted someone who was that in real life, because we wanted that character to be that. And so it made sense to find someone that is a TikToker. So we were very lucky to get Kit as well. It's quite funny. The day that we shot Kit's scenes, because there were so many young people on set, because they're like, with all the extras and stuff, they were like, "Oh my God, Kit Price is here!" Like, because he's kind of famous in their circle, in the ecosystem that they are, like, because they're all on TikTok. He is TikTok famous, and so it was quite special getting him cast.
So, what type of conversations did you have with Kit? Because he's the perfect example. I mean, does he understand the getting caught up in the vortex of social media?
Yeah, again, this is we shot a behind the scenes film, like, kind of making of, and we interviewed all of the cast, all of the lead cast, Kit as well being one of them, and he understands it. He clearly can see the negative effects of social media and the dangers of it, and it's all about, when it starts becoming your career and it's making your money, it's all about having discipline and boundaries with it. And so he's quite wise in knowing that this is generating his money, but he understands the kind of relationship he needs to have with it to not get too sucked into its vortex. So again, another kind of wise head on his shoulders. I feel like all of our cast that have been attached to this project have been so, but there are definitely people there that are blinded by the need for this kind of validation online, and they're chasing it, and without any fulfillment. It's like, you can tell, like, it's this blinker blind optimism of just like fame hunger. Um, like there are certain TikTokers that are like they're hugely famous, but they're almost famous for not having any talent. I mean, I know I don't want to sound like I'm calling that out there, but like there are accounts I ask myself, what are they doing? And it's just the kind of like it's just reels of their day to day. They're just making compelling content of their day to day. But that is the life of like a kind of general influencer. Um, so yeah,
Well,
that's what we tried to capture with that role with Kit.
yeah, and I mean, you talk about a subject. I mean, you could have done a feature film on this. And, and I noticed I went back because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to give the ending away, but you do something that I love what filmmakers do. You give us a scene within the film, but it's going to be tied to the climax or the major scene towards the end. And you do that with the swimming class. People watch this film, they see the swimming class, they're not to the point of putting two and two together. But what is important about that scene of the swimming class is that many times, even teenagers, adults too, there are things in our life that may seem trivial that we may want to skip out of, but they could be the very thing that saves our life, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we tried to foreshadow narrative beats throughout, whether it was like the kind of thematic beats of the story, both through like visual, like even like production design. Like there's presence of water in almost every scene, um, just foreshadowing what's to come. And so we tried to like pepper it with Easter eggs throughout. Like even certain camera angles, like like the morning of Oscar's final day, the opening camera shot is called an angel's view or a God's view, and it's kind of directly looking down on him. And there's a slow push in, and it's just like you know camera language. We try to like incorporate that as much as we can. There's also, I don't know if you got to see it, but in the bathroom mirror, there's a ghost of Oscar's character, which is very, very slim. Like it's a very small moment, and not many people see it. And when people do, I feel I really enjoy it. When it's like we did a screening at the Chinese Theatre on Hollywood Boulevard last week, which was a real pinch me moment because that is probably arguably one of the most famous cinemas in the world, Holly Shorts. And someone came up to me afterwards. He goes, dude, the ghost, his ghost was in the mirror. And I was just like, yeah. And like, it was like, he was just like, whoa, because he felt like he saw it and no one else did. And so he made a real point to come up to me afterwards and say, that was so cool. And he was asking me if there was more of that. And there was in an earlier cut. The first cut of this was like 24 minutes long. We managed to get it down to 16, so we cut a lot out. But there was more moments that we had peppered throughout. But sadly, like we even cut a whole scene which was the opening scene, which was in a chapel, again foreshadowing what was happening at the end. But for the purpose of like a short, trying to tell a concise story in that format, and sadly having to like make a film for festival kind of scheduling and programming, we kind of were like, we should try and cut it down as short as we can. But as a result, I feel like we've got the strongest edit from doing that.
No, you did, because even in that scene, because I didn't catch the ghost because I was watching Oscar and his interactions with his phone or his
Like,
social media followers. Of course, the funniest scene in the whole film is when his mother shows up and then everybody's making comments about her boobs. So that was hilarious, So I think that's why most people are not going to catch the ghost. So
yeah,
so I commend those who saw the ghost in the background, because I love it when filmmakers plant the Easter eggs. They put the little nuances that are, you know, foreshadowing and telling us an upcoming part of the film, and because that's the magic of movie making. Now, there was the scene in, I guess it was the library commons type area where all the students meet. And so Oscar um, gets very overexcited because Trey said he was going to follow him on social media. And now with you, Archie, because now you're changing the social media landscape. And when your parents were running your social media, did somebody famous ever follow your account and that you got overly excited about?
Famous people have followed me on Instagram. I wouldn't say that I've reacted to the extent of Oscar. Not because I obviously don't appreciate the fact that these really famous people are following me on Instagram. I mean, like, that's amazing. That's really, really cool. But definitely not to the extent that Oscar would have, because when he gets followed by Trey, he like totally freaks out. Like, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to him. And I think when I was playing in that scene, I wanted to really emphasize that kind of level of, I wouldn't necessarily say delusion, but I can't think of a better word for it. Just kind of like just how enthralled and encaptured Oscar is by social media, that the most popular guy in his school following him back is somehow like a life-changing event, when it just really isn't.
And that's exactly what I read into that scene. I believe that I don't care if it's a teenager, young adult, or an adult, and if they're on social media chasing followers, likes, and views, when somebody who is notable to them either follows them out of the clear blue or follows them back, I think they get the idea that it's going to lead to something positive. And Jordan, the real case is that it doesn't, does it?
Not at all. I think it said in the script that Oscar fizzes with excitement. Um, but no, it really doesn't. I think that to Archie and the boys in this, like I am really impressed with their performances. Um, like they're truly acting, and I feel like, but they're like being playful with it, and I feel like that's what it really comes across. And amongst them, they managed to build real chemistry. Like if you watch a lot of these kind of coming of age classics, or even a more modern classic like Stranger Things, a lot of the reason why these work is they all remind us of our own youth, and because they get such great chemistry. Like the reason why coming of age films resonate so well is because we've all been young once and we've all lived through those hardships in life. And so when you have these four boys who have come together, who didn't know each other before this at all, and then they're able to like have such like fun camaraderie amongst themselves on set, was really special. And I think we were very lucky on this. Is I actually attended a film festival, Sundance, about 2 years ago, and I watched a film called Dee Dee. The director, I believe, was called Sean Wang. And watching that film, again, coming of age, and the chemistry was so good. And so I got to chat with them afterwards. I was like, "How did you get such great chemistry amongst the actors?" Because I know they're not mates, they're actors. And so he said, well, we had no phones on set as a strict rule. And we also did like daily talent shows. And so they'd all prep these talents to do stuff. I was like, well, that's fun, but we're not a feature, and we're definitely not going to have enough time to be doing talent shows on set. So on my way home, I was thinking like, on the plane, like, what could I do? And so near where I live, there's a haunted mansion escape room. And so I said, right, let's not do a rehearsal with the boys on the first time round. Let's take them I'm going to just take them on a fun day out, as if I was like their big brother or uncle or something like that. And so I took them to this haunted mansion escape room, and they all rock up and they're with their mums and they're not really chatting. It's all a bit kind of awkward, teenage angst kind of thing. And so I quickly shooed mums away, and I was like, thanks for dropping them off, but lads, get in here straight away. And it was like, it's a high stress problem solving, and they didn't even have a chance to like introduce themselves. Or like we were straight in there trying to solve this puzzle. And lo and behold, we got through it and we survived and we managed to get out there alive. And but you could see it in the room, like it was like the energy and like that was, and just having to problem solve just made them instantly connect. And then I took them to Nando's, which is like a very kind of popular restaurant in the UK, and I couldn't shut them up. Like they were just like chatting over each other like that. And then we went bowling, and then we got like a WhatsApp group chat, and they were sending me all these funny memes and stuff like that. And so they were just instantly best friends. And so then when they actually had to act in these scenes, they were just having fun. It was like being at school hanging out. And like, I mean, one of the kind of slight negatives of that is after that, it was very hard to make them focus because they were just having too much fun. And I was like, guys, we're here to do some work now, so let's focus.
Yeah, we got a film to make.
We got a film to make. But what it did is when we were on set, because there's a lot of waiting around when you're shooting. There's loads of waiting around as we're setting up for new shots, etc., moving around, changing locations, all that. But because we'd spent that time together to build that chemistry, they were just like waxing lyrical with each other the whole time and having a good time. And so I think that really came through in the final film. And like there's a scene that happens in this after the therapist scene towards the end, when it's like a quite vulnerable moment that he's having, and then he sees them at the window and he says, "Oh, can I have my phone back now, please?" And she's like, "I think you should stay for a bit longer." He said, "No, I just want it back." And then it cuts to him outside walking through the corridor and off the school grounds. But those moments, that's just all improv of just the boys just having fun. And it just puts a smile on my face every time, because it just instantly reminds me of that innocence of youth when you're just young, carefree, the world's in front of you. And that's something that I feel really helps, like, the impact of this film hit even more at the end, at the climax, because these four boys have their whole lives ahead of them. But then sadly, one of them he's not going to get that life of opportunity because of this mobile phone that they're so obsessed over.
Yeah, because I noticed, okay, because after you're right, the scene after the therapist, and the thing that I noticed is when you have the camera shot where the camera shot's down low, it's looking up at all four of them, and they're walking to where Oscar is saying, "Hey, this is where the dead body is," but you can tell in that scene that even for me, when I watched it, I was just like, wow. I remember back in the day when we could, hang out with our friends after school. Your parents didn't even know where you were.
Yeah.
We were on our bicycles. Who knows where we ended up at? You didn't worry about dark strangers jumping out of the bushes or anything. You just lived life and you didn't care, but it was carefree. And that whole scene, you feel it and you see it happening. But the scene before with the therapist, I thought that was probably one of the most important scenes in the film, because she says, she's handing the phone over to Oscar and she goes, "Don't let this take over your whole life. It doesn't mean as much as you think it does." But it goes back to what you said, Jordan, early on, that with this film, you're having the opportunity to take it into schools, where when adults say that to a young person, the young person isn't always going to grasp it. It's when the message is from a young person to another young person. And you see that in that particular scene. And to me, that was the warning in the whole film.
Yeah. And we made a real choice to keep the camera on Archie the whole time. I think we leave him like maybe twice, and it's just a slow push in, and you can just tell something bad's going to happen to this poor boy. And when he's finally opening up as well, like she's finally getting through to him, because the scene before that, he's walking through the corridor and he's hearing the voices in his head, and then it cuts to that J.W. Turner famous painting called The Deluge. And we're very particular to choose that painting because metaphorically that painting, it encapsulates the whole plot in a single piece of art, and that slow push in on that piece of art, and then it cuts to the very thing that metaphorically connects to that painting. And so, that final scene is like the heart of the film. Like, you're finally getting through to him, but social media is winning even still. Because she's she's a therapist. The fact that he's even seeing the school therapist at the age of like 14, 15 is like pretty hard to deal with enough. And we've been very ambiguous as to why he's there. We never let the audience know why he's there. We give little kind of hints that his like parents are obviously going through a divorce, but you never know what he's done previously and all the lies that he's previously told, because you can tell that he lies often, because the boys are like, oh, not again, what's he on about this time?
Well, he skipped swimming class, so that was a sign that he had done it before.
Exactly. And so, because the thing is that we've all known someone like Oscar's part throughout our whole life, like that, whether phones existed or not. People will always, everyone's going to expand the truth to, like, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, they say. But like, that exists, and we all know those people. And so, like, and Archie plays it with such vulnerability. Like, I feel like that is such a strong scene for him. And I was really proud of the way in which he delivered that.
Well, I can completely relate, because in high school there were 4 of us that ran around together, but there was one of us 4 that was Oscar. And the rest of us were like, dude, you're going to get us in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there were times we got close, but we'll just say that we never got caught. But but for you, Archie, where did you place your mindset when you were filming the end?
The final scene.
Yeah, well, let me back up. When you are trying to convince your 3 other friends that you found the dead body, and you have the one scene where we find out that it wasn't, but then you still can't get out of the mode, and then you're trying to stretch it, but there's nobody around except you and the followers. So where did you take yourself to do that, to do those scenes?
It's a really, really good question, actually. Obviously, because I've never really been involved in like social media, and I've never had the dependency or the feeling of needing social validation through clout and through like likes on social media. I didn't really have much to draw inspiration from like my personal experience. So acting out those scenes with such passion was difficult. But what I essentially did was I find visualizing the situation and the character that I'm in um, logically before like going through a take, and then just acting out how I would act out, if that makes sense. Like I would like visualize what's going on in my head, what I'm feeling or what my character's feeling, and then just interpret that through how I would do it. Because what I always try to put a bit of myself into all of the characters that I play, because I find that I act best that way. Um, I just found it better to kind of like not draw inspiration from personal experience and just try to imagine what it must be like for Oscar in that situation and draw it from there.
Yeah, because Jordan, you as director, Archie, you as the lead actor, You really made the audience feel sorry for Oscar at the end, especially when his friends were like, dude, just stop it. And then they walk away and Oscar's left by himself. I mean, I felt sorry for him and I'm like, dude, wake up. But he kept pushing, and the ending proves that overall, fame can be fleeting, sometimes in the worst ways.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's a very heavy ending, and we kind of experimented with that ending quite a lot. Before we had this whole score built out, like incredibly written by our composers, Ollie Clark and James Larter. But then just at the final stage before we were doing our final submissions, I was like, I think we should listen to it without any music. Let's just try it and see it just with the sounds of like him drowning. And the moment we did that, it just completely changed the whole final scene of the film. And I was like, I was like, it has to be this, because the score was kind of like driving the emotion. It was like giving you the emotion for you. Whereas when you take it away and you're just listening to it, and then it's cutting to the kind of live stream feed of the comments, it almost feels like you're a participant in it.
you
It's like,
do. You do.
yeah,
But I'm not going to say funny. Here's the weird thing. The comments that were coming up, that's the mentality and the attitude of those on social media that, in a way, they come across glorifying demise.
and well, that sadly, that is what happens. All you have to do is look at the comment section in anything, whether it's YouTube, Instagram. Um, People are really screwed up with some of the things that they say, and they're not thinking about, there's zero empathy in that. They're not thinking about who's reading that, especially aimed at the very people that are in it. Like, there's some really crazy people out there, and so they're like, the fact that they're like clout chaser, and but then some people are in like, call an ambulance, but others are just calling him out and saying, yeah, that fake news, fake news.
Yeah, yeah. Seeing something that's really happening, that's real, and then they turn around and go, ah, he's faking it. Like, oh, one of his friends is holding the camera. And when I saw that, I went, that's exactly the mentality of today's society. And
Yeah,
you nailed it.
it really is. It's a scary thing, really, because the videos like this actually exist in the world. Like, this is narrative, but there are people that have actually lost their lives chasing clout. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's just really horrible comments on the feeds of those. It's just a really
So you premiered at Holly Shorts. Now, uh, Archie, did you go to Holly Shorts?
Unfortunately, no, I could not make it. I really wanted to go though, because it would have been so amazing.
Well, so Jordan, what was the audience's response to the overall film?
it was almost quite overwhelming, actually. We had the questions. Like, there was one particular girl in the audience, and she said, "Is this like Stand By Me?" And I was like, "It is." And then she went, "Oh, I knew it, I knew it." And then she told us a story about her and her father, who would watch that film every single year. And it was their film, and it was like a thing that they've always loved together. And he had sadly passed away recently. And she said, watching that film made me feel like I was with him. And I wish he'd be here to see it, but just watching it felt really special, because it gave me all the same memories that I had with my dad. And I was just like that was just such a special and sweet moment, because I wrote this with two friends in a flat in London during lockdown, and how we were able to impact someone and have that give an experience like that to someone was really special. So that was a really sweet moment when presenting this film, because it was the first time we've ever played it publicly. We've been so busy just doing the festival run, we've not even had a chance to do a cast and crew friends or family screening yet. It's wild. So most of the crew haven't seen. I don't even know if Archie's seen it yet, if I'm honest. We're waiting for the premiere to share it, because I feel like like any film, rather than watching it on a phone or on a laptop or something at home alone, being in a theater with other people is the best way to experience a film, especially if you've had something to do with it, you've had an impact, you've contributed to it, because it's a complete collaborative effort. But when you're in the cinema and you're watching it with other people, you're hearing everyone's reactions, and like there were like it was great sitting there and I just wasn't pretty. I was barely watching it. I was just feeling the energy of the room, and seeing and hearing when things landed. Like there was moments that we were getting laughs that I was just like, I didn't even know those bits were funny, but great, I'll take that. But yeah, it's like, so the reason why I've been holding off on sending out screeners to all of the cast and the crew is because I really want them to experience how special it feels to watch it for the first time in a theater. And so we've been really lucky. There's a cinema group in the UK called Everyman. They're an independent cinema, but they're nationwide. They're arguably the best cinema in the country. They have proper like velvet sofas, and you can order food with your with the cinema experience. They even have someone that comes out and introduces every film before it plays. It's like it's a cinema made by film lovers, and so it's like to have the opportunity to show our film with this cinema is so exciting. And they've just opened a new flagship in London, and we're doing our premiere there in 2 weeks today, actually. And so we're going to be able to watch the film with, that many people in the room with us watching it for the first time. So I think that they'll thank me in the long run, the fact that I've made them wait this long, because it will be far more special experience to watch it on the big screen.
It's a stellar film, and yes, I completely 110% agree. You have to watch the film on the big screen. In a theater to get the whole full experience of not only your work, but then everyone else who's associated with the film, and then other audience members can get the true meaning. And Archie, do you have any words of advice for those your own age and maybe the new generation coming up in the world of social media?
Regarding social media, or just in general?
Well, either one.
I'd say regarding social media, I think it's become so intertwined with everyone's lives at this point. As society and technology develop, social media is inevitably intertwined with the courses of everyone's lives and is an inevitability. But I think that if there's one bit of advice that I could give to, be it parents of children or people my age in general, just have a revision of what your relationship with social media is like, and understand its uses and how it can be positive, obviously, to like connect with people and make friends, but understand the negatives and how it can affect you deeply mentally in some very, very harrowing and negative ways. I think the main message of CLOUT that I wanted to convey, particularly with my performance, was just to make sure that people understand social media, and understand that, well, as in the script, it doesn't mean as much as you think it does, because it obviously doesn't. And I think it'd be a lot more people would be better off if they stopped relying so much on social media for social validation and started finding more confidence in themselves and their authentic personality. Because people are genuinely always happiest when they're just comfortable in their own skin being themselves.
I couldn't say that any better, Archie.
Stop it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to hear you should have heard and accept the wise words of Archie Yates. He's he's beyond his years, and I'm probably a little bit of old soul, but what an actor you are. And for both of you, the last question, do you have any new projects or roles coming up that you're allowed to talk about?
I mean, I've actually written a new project called Triage. It's a play, so it's going to be in the theatre. We'll be doing a first run of that in January of 2026. But yeah, I'm very excited by that project. It's a very personal story. There is chats of developing it into my first feature film, but it's very early doors. So yeah, not much I can share on that yet, but it's still very much in the kind of development stage.
And what about you, Archie? Anything you can
Um,
tell us coming up, or is it still
I
under NDA?
have I have nothing in the pipeline that I can disclose officially at the moment. There could potentially be some stuff coming up. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. However, because I want to branch more into being more like Jordan and doing film directing and script writing, I've decided to officially start work on a feature length script, which I'm going to be writing over the rest of this summer and then over the course of the next few years, see if I can get it published and then try my hand at directing. We'll see what happens. But
Uh,
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I absolutely love it. And ladies and gentlemen, Clout tells the story of Oscar, played by Archie Yates, a lonely teenager at his prestigious private school who desperately seeks online fame. Now, the film delves into the dangerous pursuit of digital validation, showing the extreme lengths young people will go to achieve it. This is highlighted when an outrageous claim escalates into a perilous live stream stunt. Now, CLOUT is full of a few comical moments that highlights, well, what happens in real life, and sometimes we miss the seriousness of our actions. Now, social media has become the animal that society can't tame and a vortex that many find that they get sucked up in and they don't come out alive. And Jordan, Archie, I want to thank you both for joining me today and sharing this incredible film, Clout, with me. And much success to both of you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Well,
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We had a great time.
Oh,
Until next time.
Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
I said until next time.
Until next time, and I will tell you this,
Until
both of
next
you are
time.
always welcome back on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, as well as listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And I don't mind telling you that you can definitely follow us, but we're not chasing fame here. We're talking to the famous. So remember, you'll either see me at the movies or from the red carpet.